guys, we're on another adventure. We are going to be visiting the Adams National Historic Site. Been here several times, but it's been a hot minute, so we're really excited to be back. It's a beautiful day. So it's kind of a strange process, very unlike most national parks. You come here to downtown Quincy on Hancock Street to the National Park Service Visitors Center and Gift Shop, and this is where you get your tickets. And in the past, they've had a trolley that takes you from here to the Adams birth site, childhood home, and Peacefield, his home with Abigail later on. I'm not sure if they're still doing that or if we can park there. We're gonna go in and try to figure it out and take you guys along for the ride. This is gonna be good, trust me. This is an awesome place. You're gonna love it. I'm frustrated. And I'm remembering the other reason that we haven't been back for a while, and it's unfortunate because John Adams is one of my absolute favorite, and his house site and Peacefield is an incredible place to visit. But unfortunately, the people that are running the national park here, like the people you go deal with, are jerks. They've been jerks in the past. The guy was a jerk today, and apparently they are pre-selling. It's a very confusing system. You go to their website, half the time it doesn't work. The rules are always changing about how you come visit here. And he's saying that the tours of Peacefield are all sold out for the day, so we can go do a self-guided and drive over to his birth site and childhood home. But we can't go to Peacefield today after coming all this way, and it's just mind-boggling because we tried to get tickets online and couldn't figure out the system. We actually have a national park pass. So it would have been taken care of, but like we can't figure it out. And he's like, well, you have to click it 4 times. We're like, well, it doesn't say that. How are we supposed to know that? And he just looked at us like we were stupid, and the guy was just incredibly rude, unfortunately. But I don't want that to deter you because it's still like such a treasure. So we crossed the street and we are at this gorgeous park. And here is this beautiful statue of the illustrious President John Adams, and here's this fountain, and we are actually going to make our way. By the way, this town, Quincy, the city, seems very much cleaned up from the last time we were here. It's honestly been a couple years, and even longer for the boys. But in the past, there's been like some issues, and it seems, I don't know why, but it seems much nicer now. I don't know whether they got a new mayor or what. Whatever it is, it's good. But we are heading over to the crypt underneath the church where the Adamses are all buried, their final resting place. And oh, I see a statue of the lovely Abigail over here. One of my favorite ladies in history. Always an inspiration to me. This is beautiful. Love, love, love this. And she, of course, was from this area as well. And her house is down the road. They're only open like once a month, seasonally. But yes. Church of the Presidents. Built in 1828, this church is the 4th edifice to house the town's earliest congregation and is the final resting place of 2 United States presidents and first ladies. The building was endowed by John Adams, who specified it to be a temple of stone built of Quincy granite. In 1826, John Quincy Adams proposed that the church become the permanent resting place of his parents, a plain and modest monument that many yet as durable as the walls of the temple and as the rocks of his native town. In 1852, the church also became the final resting place of John Quincy Adams and Louisa Catherine Adams. And by the way, John Quincy Adams, we cannot overstate, honestly, one of our smartest presidents we ever had, extremely high IQ, brilliant, wonderful, trustworthy, upright man, just incredible like his father, John Quincy. Of course, you know, he's oversaw the Amistad trials and was a very gifted lawyer, statesman, and he actually died in the White House after serving an entire life of service to this country. So both of them together, just an incredible duo. And this is a Unitarian church. Now, Unitarianism used to mean something different in the 18th century. It's changed a lot since then. A lot of these now are Universalist Unitarian. which means that they kind of are like all faiths. At the time of John Adams, that was not the case. It was a Christian denomination. I love these old churches. This is incredible, you guys. I've been here before, but it's been a little while. The history in here. Look at these pew boxes. So in the 18th century, families would rent these, and so they kind of like own their space in church, and they would decorate them. Some churches you can go into, you can still see preserved decorations, but they would have decorated them. They had stools. Some of them had heater boxes for their feet. They would have blankets, their family Bibles or hymnals they would bring. They would get all cozy and settle down because the services were very long, and it was part of their not only religious structure, but their social structure as well. So that's kind of what we've got going on here. And, you know, coming in here is like stepping back in time and taking a look into the faith of the era as well. So really an incredible example of an 18th century church and what would have gone on at the time with the Adamses, certainly as well. Lovely pulpit here. And here we have where the Adams would have sat. And you can see it's got the Adams pew here. So they had a nice front row. Imagine them sitting here and coming every Sunday and listening to sermons. This is incredible. This would have been a major part of their lives. And pastors in this era were very involved in people's lives. They, you know, tended to a lot of their spiritual needs, physical needs. Sometimes they were friend, and some of them even ended up fighting in the Revolution. But oh, look at that organ, and the ceiling is just incredible. Beautiful, beautiful. I imagine the acoustics in here are awesome. Down to pay our respects.
So our first two buildings stood about a quarter of a mile southeast of here. The first was a wooden structure, and the second was made of Quincy granite. So this is a model of the old stone meeting house at the bottom of the stairs here, made of Quincy granite, the first stone building in all of New England. It was dedicated in 1666, and this is the weather vane from 1666. This is where Reverend John Hancock, who was the father of the patriot John Hancock, began his service for our church in 1726. But at that time, the roof was leaking, and sometimes snow might come into the sanctuary, so people would have to shovel the snow before beginning services. And so a new building was needed. The Hancock Meeting House was built in 1732, named for Reverend John Hancock, and this is the building that he would have baptized John Adams in 1735, his own son John Hancock in 1737, and where John and Abigail brought their family to church, and where the funeral service of John Adams was held. So this building stood approximately outside these windows here. You can see it completed, but John Quincy Adams carried out his father's legacy. And John Quincy Adams wanted a permanent memorial for his parents, so he purchased this space from the church in the spring of 1828. He paid $1 for the deed to this room, and that deed is still with the Adams family descendants. So on April 1st, in 1828, John and Abigail's caskets were brought from the family tomb and put to rest. The second room was added in 1852 upon the death of Louisa Catherine Adams for John Quincy Adams and his wife. So just watch your head as you go in, and this small step, and you may take pictures if you'd like.
Thank you.
From their presidency.
Okay.
Yeah, with John Adams, you still have the same number of stars as stripes, 15 for the 13 colonies plus Kentucky, and Vermont, and then during his term, Tennessee was added.
Okay.
It's wonderful.
1636. So you know, because he was banished to Exeter, New Hampshire.
Yeah,
Okay.
I do know.
I always tell people to go there.
That's a great bit of local church history. Wheelwright, yeah, man. It's not so bad getting banished to Exeter, though.
Absolutely. Right? It's a beautiful place.
We've kind of been banished to Exeter ourselves, so it's not. We live right near there.
Great.
Lady that just walked us through the crypt and part of the church, so sweet. Very, very nice and helpful and kind. And I mentioned how Quincy seems cleaned up, and she said yes, that in the last couple of years there's been a big push, a lot of kind of landscaping changes physically, a lot of kind of law changes. Just they were fed up and they've cleaned things up, and I was like, oh man, it really shows. So that's really. I've said it before. I will keep saying it. We are all living in John Hancock's America, and if I can't get you to be on board with that sentiment, at least know that we are definitely part of John Hancock's Boston. But really, we're all living in John Hancock's America. Talk about like a family and a man who built this country. He is it. He is the goat. Here, so there's the statue, and the church is the beautiful historic cemetery. We're going to go in and have a look. The only time I've been here, I think it was like really bad weather, so we didn't get to enjoy it. So I'm looking forward to enjoying it now. And I have a little handy dandy map that the lady in there left us. And there's lots of good information here too. So yay. 1640 Hancock Cemetery. And I realized too that I kept referring to that church as 18th century. Really, it's 17th. All this stuff is 17th century. I guess it's just that, you know, we're dealing with a lot of 18th century figures, as I call them, my guys. But yeah, we've got a lot of Quincy's. Reverend John Hancock here. John Adams the First. So this place is kind of a big deal. This is my kind of day, you guys. Take a drive to a historic church, check out a cemetery and historic stuff, and the day's just beginning. We've got some big plans too. We're gonna go to Boston after this and see where the day takes us. But yeah, I'm feeling good and feel better once I get a little caffeine in me, which we will do. Also, Quincy. Home to the very first Dunkin Donuts. Fun fact. I know here we are talking about really important things like the Addams family and the Hancocks, but yes, also, I mean, we're living in John Hancock's America, and America runs on Dunkin, right? That's what they say. So thank you, Quincy, Massachusetts, for all that. And you will notice that it is the Quincy family, but it is pronounced Quincy when we talk about the town. I don't know why. It's just how you say it when you're a local. Yeah, this cemetery, they were using it. It was the main burial ground until 1854. So, quite a long time. Generations of the Quincy's and Hancocks. Wow. Master Ichabod. Not to be confused with Ichabod Crane. It says he was a music teacher. Okay, now I'm going to give you guys a little 101 on historic graves. So you see this weeping willow motif here with the vase. That is later. By later, I mean like early 18 to mid 1800s. Early on, like 17th century, so 1600s, you would have a single skull with the sands of time. I'll point that out if I see any. And then it would have gone to more elaborate skulls and cherubs with wings. And part of that is due to the sentiment of the time. So the Puritans wanted death to be near and for people to know that there was a finality to all of that. After the Great Awakening, enter my guy, George Whitefield and Jonathan Edwards and others. They had an approach to it where they wanted people to know that the kingdom of heaven was very real and very present, and that if you die, you're going to go one place or another. So they started to add wings to say that, like, you're dead, but you're taking flight. It's just your shell here. and that there's a little optimism to it that, you know, if you are in the right, you are going to go be with God, and it's not so gruesome. And later on, you started to have the weeping willows and the vases. I personally think they're all cool. Seen some interesting artwork. If you go to cemeteries of this era in the southern states, you're going to see more of the skulls with crossbones, which is kind of funny and interesting if you think about it, because that's more associated with like piracy. Well, you know, Blackbeard, for instance, was in the Carolinas, so you know, you've got to think that there's definitely some correlation to that there. So yeah, the styles definitely have changed over time, and you know, now they're doing all kinds of things, of course, like they can put images on it. Oh, this one's cool. With the hands clasped. That would have been, yeah, see, 1840. Yep, there's the classic weeping willow. So now they even will put like photographs of people on graves and stuff. Well, of course, they didn't have that technology, and this was much more based on the spiritual aspect, the finality of death, but the hope of what's to come if you're a person of faith. So that's definitely reflected on what I am talking about. And yeah, it's sad. A lot of times when you see the little headstones, that's because that was a child. Of course, there would have been lots of disease at the time. Among smallpox, you would have had dysentery and things like that. Oftentimes, unfortunately, they thought it was the air making them sick when it was in fact the water that could kill you. Once they figured that out, you know, there were times when they had even babies drinking ale to be safe. But yeah, they just didn't have the grasp on germs, disease, bacteria that we have now. You can see 1877. This is very plain. Doesn't really have any spiritual motif to it whatsoever. I'm going to see if I can find you something a little older and show you. Master Ichabod. Not to be confused with Ichabod Crane. It says he was a music teacher. Okay, now I'm going to give you guys a little 101 on historic graves. So you see this weeping willow motif here with the vase. That is later. By later, I mean like early 18 to mid 1800s. Early on, like 17th century, so 1600s, you would have a single skull with the sands of time. I'll point that out if I see any. And then it would have gone to more elaborate skulls and cherubs with wings. And part of that is due to the sentiment of the time. So the Puritans wanted death to be near, and for people to know that there was a finality to all of that. After the Great Awakening, enter my guy, George Whitefield and Jonathan Edwards and others. They had an approach to it where they wanted people to know that the kingdom of heaven was very real and very present, and that if you die, you're going to go one place or another. So they started to add wings to say that, like, you're dead, but you're taking flight. It's just your shell here, and that there's a little optimism to it that, you know, if you are in the right, you are going to go be with God, and it's not so gruesome. And later on, you started to have the weeping willows and the vases. I personally think they're all cool. Seen some interesting artwork. If you go to cemeteries of this era in the southern states, you're going to see more of the skulls with crossbones, which is kind of funny and interesting if you think about it, because that's more associated with like piracy. Well, you know, Blackbeard, for instance, was in the Carolinas, so you know, you've got to think that there's definitely some correlation to that there. So yeah, the styles definitely have changed over time, and you know, now they're doing all kinds of things, of course, like they can put images on it. Oh, this one's cool. With the hands clasped. That would have been, yeah, see, 1840. Yep, there's the classic weeping willow. So now they even will put like photographs of people on graves and stuff. Well, of course, they didn't have that technology, and this was much more based on the spiritual aspect, the finality of death, but the hope of what's to come if you're a person of faith. So that's definitely reflected on what I am talking about. Yeah, it's sad. A lot of times when you see the little headstones, that's because that was a child. Of course, there would have been lots of disease at the time. Among smallpox, you would have had dysentery and things like that. Oftentimes, unfortunately, they thought it was the air making them sick when it was in fact the water that could kill you. Once they figured that out, you know, there were times when they had even babies drinking ale to be safe. But yeah, they just didn't have the grasp on germs, disease, bacteria that we have now. You can see 1877. This is very plain, doesn't really have any spiritual motif to it whatsoever. I'm going to see if I can find you something a little older and show you what I mean. Here is an example of a headstone that's clearly been replaced, trying to look like it's in the old style. This is a very old grave from the 17th century, but definitely wouldn't have looked like this. But they did a really cool job of making it look very much in that style and made to last, which is nice. I've seen that recently, and I've seen old graves, not in the cemetery, but I've seen them elsewhere being held up with steel brackets and things like that, which I'm always glad when people are paying attention to gravestone preservation. So here's a great example of a reinforced early 18th century stone. See what I'm talking about? It has the sands of time and the winged skull. That's a perfect, very classic example of what was popular at that time. And here you have a different variation on that. Here we have a very old original Adams grave. This is Henry Adams, founder of Braintree, branch of the Adams family. So this would be the John Adams's great grandfather. Like, this is the one that came from Devon, England, and brought the family, and thank God he did. Here's some more really great old examples.
Josiah Adams Sr., 1694.
Not only are they, you know, the ancestors of the famous Adamses, but they were founders of this town, and, you know, are part of our history and contributed greatly to the making of all of this. You wouldn't have one without the other.
Wait, this has to be, right? Brad?
Yeah, because you look on Find a Grave and that's it. We were, yeah, having a hard time finding it, but this is a very important. This is the grave of Reverend John Hancock. John Hancock, the founding father's father. He died when John Hancock was young, and John Hancock got to go live with his aunt and uncle, who took very good care of him, and that is how our John Hancock got his wealth. And because of that wealth, he was able to go on to help found the nation and pass all that blessing along. And the Hancocks were from here, but after his father, this man here, passed away, he had to go live in Concord, Massachusetts for a while, and then he moved into the beautiful mansion on Beacon Hill in downtown Boston with gardens and staff and carriages, but he didn't use his wealth for stupidity. He used his wealth and all of the power that came with it for good. He was a big believer in liberty, and even though he had a lot to lose from it, being ships and money, cargo, and the like, and his life was on line. He was the most wanted man in the American colonies at the time. Nevertheless, he kept with it, fought, and lived a very prosperous life that began here in Quincy, Massachusetts. And honestly, even though Peacefield isn't going to work out today, I'm chilled out, and it's worth it, you guys, to come. Even if you just come and you see this cemetery, or you see the cemetery and the crypt with the church where the Adamses attended and their final resting place, 1,000% worth it. So one more look at the Hancock Cemetery in Quincy. Absolutely beautiful Beautiful place to come, view respects, and learn something, and see tangible evidence of lives left behind that made a huge, huge impact on this country and on the world. Happy to see a very cleaned up Quincy. This place is historic and important, and I've been saying for years, why is this place cleaned up? But it is. And here we have the old town or city hall, built in 1844 when Quincy granite was the height of its popularity as a monumental architectural material. It's beautiful and goes really well with the area. This whole park and area is just gorgeous and something to see in and of itself. Really, really impressive. Beautiful, and yes, people are in the fall mood, but look at, we've got bumblebees on lavender and a garden in full bloom. What a day. That's our car. And we are now at the John Adams birthplace and childhood home. Super exciting. Skate on these silky original floors. So this is the John Quincy Adams birthplace house, and it's not super duper furnished like some other places, but they have enough in here to give you a general idea of what the rooms would have been used for. And here we have a picture of him here. Handsome guy. And there's a lady peeking through the window. That was creepy. We're just gonna kind of walk through. All right, so to clarify, so this house is John Quincy Adams' birthplace and the house that John Adams lived in as a child and later on had with Abigail, first before they moved into the beautiful Peacefield. But this is where John Quincy Adams, his son and later president, was born. And here we're looking at his law office, John Adams' law office, which is actually, when you think about it, a really freaking big deal. It's, of course, a much simpler, colonial era house, and reflecting that it's actually a good size, though, for the time. I say simple, but for the era, it's spacious. Of course, maybe not as spacious as what some are used to now, and if you compare it to Peacefield, which, again, we won't be able to go into today, so we'll have to come back and make another video, which is no problem, because I love it. But Peacefield is a much grander, beautiful home, and the thing about Peacefield is they have all of the original furnishings. It's a really like, yep, just went in John Adams' house and John Quincy Adams' house, and nothing to see here, except there is, and it's not really normal. It's extra. So we're gonna have to wait because the birthplace, like a tour group just went in, and again, this place is very confusing and their website sucks, which this nice ranger here actually admitted. So we're gonna have to wait for them to come out before we can even do like a self-guided. Additionally, they said that there's no video allowed. I have no idea why there's video allowed in John Quincy Adams' birthplace in the Adams house, but not the John Adams birth site. Doesn't really make too much sense. And we asked about Peacefield, and I know that you can take pictures in there because I've done it myself before, though when we first started coming out here and going to it, you couldn't. And he said that yes, you can still take pictures in Peacefield, but not video either. So even when I do come back to go inside Peacefield, I'm going to have to put together something creative with pictures, because apparently video is a no-no there as well, which kind of stinks. But yes, this is the home that second president, first vice president John Adams was born in. Sitting out here deciding what we're going to do because there's a tour going on, and he said it takes like over 20 minutes, and to be honest with you, though it's very, very cool, the inside is pretty bare bones. There's no furnishings or anything like that. Almost better off coming back and going in a different time when we go back to see Peacefield, or looking back on pictures that we've seen before, but kind of looking at this guide while I sit here and wait. And yeah, the park is open until from April 19th until November 10th. All tours begin at the visitor center. See, that's very confusing because like that's not necessarily true. And the trolley doesn't necessarily always run either, so I even checked socials and my map is going away and everything, and it's still confusing. And it's, yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's ever changing, their rules, it seems, and the people in the visitor center are not the nicest, and their website does not help you to navigate it in the best way, even if you have a park pass. So can take a little bit to make this happen, but still worth a try. Definitely recommend getting Peacefield, and if you guys just go online and want to come here, just buy regular tickets. Make sure you get a time slot for Peacefield, and if nothing else, do that. And the church like we just did with the park and the Hancock Cemetery. To vacate for now. You know what the great news is, guys? It's not a plane ride and rental car away. It is just a little over an hour drive away now. So we can come anytime, in theory, as long as we come on a good day when things seem to be organized here. But yes, I think maybe during the week is a better time to come, and with a little more organization behind it, we can make it happen. So we're gonna move on and go do some other fun stuff now. All right, remember how I said that I needed some caffeine, I need my iced tea, and that this is home of Dunkin Donuts, or as Kay calls it, Double D's. I hate when he says that. I can't even, he thinks he's so funny. Anyways, or Dunky, or Dunker, the 2Ds. This is the very first Dunky. This is the obligatory vlogger's very first Dunky vlog here for you. The logos through the time. I kind of like the donut guy. See? Iced tea in hand, I am good to go for more adventure. It's kind of fun. We've actually never stopped at this, the very first Dunky original in Quincy, but here you go. Here on Quincy Shore Drive, because I wanted to stop and show you guys this awesome beach area and the fantastic view of the Boston skyline. There's also something over here that's kind of fun. So there is the beautiful Boston skyline, and if any of you guys have seen the Apple TV movie, The Instigators, you will recognize this building from this scene where Joaquin Phoenix meets with Matt Damon and Casey Affleck to set up their plan for the heist. That is right here on this dock in this little yacht club building right here. And the movie kind of ends over in this area as well, so kind of a fun little thing. And if you guys haven't seen the movie, I actually highly recommend. I am not usually into like crime things or necessarily cop movies, but I laughed my ass off. I haven't laughed that hard at a movie in a really long time. It's really funny and cute and kind of endearing, and it actually even has some sweet moments. It's got a little bit of raunch, but like it's actually very well done, and highly recommend. It's also super local, and you know, those are all Boston guys too, the actors. Well, not Joaquin Phoenix, but Damon and Affleck, obviously. So that's a fun one, and I do recommend seeing that if you guys have Apple TV. And it's just a very beautiful, albeit windy day, as it often is in New England. We have wind, but the temperature is glorious. It's like 72 degrees and sunny. Couldn't ask for more than that. And the kids are having a fun day. We're having a fun day. We got our Dunky on, and we are making our way towards downtown Boston to check out some shops and do some other stuff. Just kind of see what happens, but taking you guys along for the ride and having some fun while learning some stuff. What's better than that? Alright guys, this video ended up being really long, so I'm going to go ahead and divide it into two parts. This will be part one with Quincy and Boston coming up next from the same day. So we're just going to pick right up where we left off, but this will make it easier for the download, which I'm having problems with. Like Patrick Henry, I know no way of judging the future but by the past. Hang on, we will be right back.